Hello, this is Chris with Phoenix Gaming, and today we're going to talk about Witch Cults in 10th edition. We're going to cover some of the strats that they have access to, the enhancements, and then different data sheets and what my total takeaways are for Witch Cults specifically. First off, stratagems. We're not going to go through them all, but the ones that are either particularly good or particularly bad, we'll see. Acrobatic display, you can fall back or advance and charge, but not shoot. It's once per phase. It will help get units into combat. It's a staple if you're going to run Witch Cult units. Feels bad because the whole army just used to have advance and charge, and I'm not a fan of having army rules turned into stratagems. It's a thing that I've been against since 8th edition. Strike and Fade is a great strat. It's best for mobile units that are packing heat that you want to keep protected, like your Scourges, but the Reavers will benefit from it. You can actually double move them for their mortal wounds, which will allow them to do mortals twice in a single turn instead of once, but it is a 2 command point stratagem. So it's going to cost you 2 command points to be able to fly over a unit, do mortal wounds, and then fly over a unit and do mortal wounds in the shooting phase. But because Strike and Fade counts as a normal movement, it does interact with their move over a unit to do mortals. Hellions could be all right with their 14-inch movement. They aren't infantry, so they kind of have to maneuver through and around terrain a little bit differently. For certain secondaries, it could be very good. Like if you take behind enemy lines, you can clear 28 inches of movement in one turn, which could allow you to get some behind enemy lines points or engage on all fronts. Alliance of Agony, it will only affect the Succubus unit. You use it in a phase. When you use it in that phase, all 3 of your HQs become empowered: the Homunculus, the Succubus, and the Archon. And that one's great if you are relying on your witches to do some damage. You don't expect them to do a lot, but this is a good way to kind of give them the boost that they need. Quicksilver reactions is going to be one that you use a lot for your Witch Cult units, especially if you're hitting indirect, because so many indirect units right now can just add one to their hit rolls when they stand still. You can at least push them back to where they should be, because a lot of the indirect units are heavy for whatever reason. But it will help keep your units on the board a little bit longer, and that coupled with the slight nerf that a lot of guns have taken with lower AP. Again, that's going to help you a lot, right? If you've got cover and your witches have a 5-up save with cover and it's 0 AP like a bolt gun, and then you have -1 to hit, again, it's just going to help give you a little bit more resiliency. There's probably better targets for that stratagem, but it's not a bad way to go. Unfortunately, Drukari stratagems are a little lackluster, but these are the ones that you're probably going to be using the most on your Witch Cult units if you choose to take them. Dancer is the Witch Cult specific enhancement. It's extremely average. The Succubus gets 1 additional attack and an additional AP, and if she's empowered, she gets 2 additional attacks and 2 additional AP. So she's not terrible. It's just one of those where witches are a very specific tool now, and they lost a lot of their versatility, and the same goes with the Succubus. I feel like the Art of Pain is probably a better option for her if you're going to put an enhancement on her, because the pain tokens, they will just give you one in every command phase, or in your command phase. Let me rephrase. In your command phase, you'll just get one. Very good. I don't see not taking the Art of Pain, and the Succubus is a fine target for it. Here we have Hellions. Their data sheet didn't really change much. They did lose infantry. Let's take a deeper dive into that. They have good mobility. They lost infantry. Advance and charge strat will help them get into melee if that's what you're using them for. Their melee is largely unchanged from 9th outside of losing combat drugs and the things that make them unique. They can advance and complete secondaries such as teleport homers or the cleanse. I'm a little mixed on it. I think losing infantry makes them tougher to get around the table, but they are one of the few 2 damage attacks in a fairly mobile platform. So I think a big unit will do well for melee, but I think smaller units would do better for scoring. And so I think if you're going to run them, you have to decide what role you want them to fill. Do you want them to be utility units that can hop around the board and score you points? Or do you want them to be hard-hitting units that can come in and clean up enemy infantry? And once you make that commitment, that's how you run them. Like I said, a couple of small units will have a lot of utility because of the ability to advance and complete secondaries such as homers or cleanse. Lilith and the Succubus, I'm not going to touch on these. I have covered them ad nauseum over a couple of live videos and a couple of regular videos. So again, I'll put a link to the live discussion in the right now. I'll put a card to the live discussion up right now. And if you want to check it out, you can. But I'm not going to dive into Lilith and the Succubus because I have talked extensively on them. Reavers, these are pretty solid. They're going to probably be an auto take in most lists simply because they do mortals when you fly over things, and you can move over things twice, and you can re-roll 2 of the dice when you do mortals. So every time you move over a unit, as long as it's not a vehicle or monster, you can average 4 mortal wounds. Like I said, meaty 16-inch movement. You can put 2 heat lances on them, so you have some good anti-tank, anti-monster shooting. They fly over to do mortal wounds. They can get +1 to wound on the charge, but I think most people are going to be doing double caltrops if they run a 6-man rather than taking the grav because they don't have any AP. Their melee's toned down. They don't have combat drugs, so they again, a lot of the Witch Cult stuff lost the stuff that made it cool and worth running. So this is a unit that has versatility, mobility, and utility. As you can see, those are the 3 ilities. They have assault weapons, which does give them the ability to cleanse and do homers just like Hellions, and they have better movement, and they do other things. So they're not as one-dimensional as Hellions are, right? Their shooting is better because they can take the heat lances. Their mobility's higher. They can still advance and score points. So again, I would put them at a B. Again, if I had to grade them on a scale within the confines of the index, I would definitely put them higher than the Hellions. And I could actually make a case for the Hellions maybe being like low C, high D. It just depends on how you're running them. Whereas these, I think, are a B. They can do just about everything you need them to do. Witches, where to begin? They kind of suck, guys. They really do. We're going to go over a few things on why I think they suck, but overall, I feel like this is one of the bigger losers from the previous edition to this one. Their datasheet didn't change a ton. They move 8 inches. They're T3, 6 up save, 4 up invuln in melee, 6 up invuln. Overall, it's just a copy paste datasheet for the most part. But let's talk about why they're poopy. Reduced strength. They're strength 3, which they were before, but they had a bonus attack from the Hekatari blades. You could combat drug them to get them to 4. I was running them at strength 5 with the sub faction, and I didn't expect all of that, right? But I kind of thought they might fight at strength 4 inherently, especially since we're not getting combat drugs, or at least get the bonus attack. But they don't get anything that makes them feel like a good or unique unit. They just feel like a very generic kind of junk unit. The forcing desperate escape attempts that the unit does when they attempt a fallback can be important because failed desperate escape attempts is destroyed models. So you can charge them into a very shooty unit, something like a Eradicator unit or Desolators. And if they don't die on the melee, your opponent's going to be very loath to want to fall back with them because if they roll a 1 or a 2 because you make the escape test as if you were battle shocked. If they roll a 1 or a 2, that's a dead model. And if they are battle shocked, it's actually 1, 2, or 3. So you have a 50% chance of killing a model when it falls back with them if they're battle shocked. So that to me is where they kind of have play. That ability doesn't work on vehicles or monsters. But if you can tag some of those shooty or infantry units, you can really kind of gum up the works. But you do need to be very wary of Overwatch, and I'm going to do a whole separate video on that. But they are great for, like I said, tying up things like Desolators, Devastators, anything like that. And their melee will still put damage on Marines. It's just not going to be reliable. Overall, to me, again, if we're grading within the confines of the index, I'd probably put these at a D. They have some utility, and I need to play with them a little bit more, but overall, they just look very lackluster and generic, and it's kind of sad. My takeaways, Witch Cult melee, and really melee in general, has been toned down quite a bit. The lack of combat drugs and reliance on characters to make witches feel good means that they are probably not going to be in a lot of competitive lists, or if you see them, they're going to be maybe like a squad of 10 with a succubus. They just kind of feel poopy right now, and I don't know how you make them feel better, because lowering points just means I've got cheap bodies that suck rather than having, the special cool unit that they used to kind of be. You do you could make the strong argument that a lot of the witch cult stuff is dedicated anti-infantry. I do feel like different branches of this army have different roles, and I could make the case for a lot of the witch cult units being an anti-infantry strike unit. The issue is going to be they are not going to put a lot of damage onto vehicles anymore like they used to. There's no potent toxins strat anymore to get the anti-infantry working on vehicles. They really are going to struggle into anything like T6 and higher, which is a shame because these are some of my favorite units in the army, and it's going to be a rough journey trying to figure out how to make them really kind of fit and feel good. But as I go through that journey, I will be sharing it with you. So be aware of that. Shout out to my patrons, Captain Too Tall, The Real Donnie G, Lord Wellingston, and Daniel Bodecker. You guys are awesome. Thank you all for the support. I appreciate everybody going on this big journey with me with the 10th edition Drukari Index. Bear with me. We will get it figured out, and we will start rocking and rolling. I am currently 1-1 with it, and we'll continue to get better. Thanks for watching. Links on the screen, links in the description. You guys rock. Thank you.